The dense fog clung to the towering eucalyptus trees, weaving through the forest like a living entity. Jackson Riker stood at the center of a makeshift training ground, flanked by his team of former soldiers. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine, a familiar comfort amid the unease that had settled over their small town. A series of mysterious disappearances had left the locals on edge, and Jackson felt the weight of their concerns pressing down on him. "Listen up, team," Jackson called, his voice cutting through the morning mist. "We've received another report. People are going missing, and we need to find out why. It's not just a rumor anymore." "Do we have any leads?" asked Sarah, a sharp-eyed veteran with a knack for reconnaissance. She tightened her grip on her rifle, her brow furrowed with worry. "Just vague sightings in the woods," Jackson replied, scanning the expressions of his comrades. "But we can't ignore it. We owe it to the community, and to ourselves, to uncover the truth." As they moved deeper into the forest, a sense of camaraderie enveloped them. Each footstep on the leaf-strewn path echoed their resolve. It had been a long time since they'd worked together like this, but the camaraderie felt like home. The fog whispered around them, lending an eerie atmosphere to their mission. Suddenly, a crackle of static interrupted their thoughts. Jackson's radio buzzed to life. "This is Control. We have a distress call from Linton's Crossing. Civilians are missing. Request immediate assistance." "Looks like we're heading to the front lines," Jackson said, his heart racing. He felt the adrenaline course through him. "Let's move!" They sprinted through the underbrush, the branches snapping beneath their boots. With each stride, Jackson pushed aside his doubts. Years of combat training surged to the forefront of his mind, and he felt the familiar rush of purpose. He was no longer just a soldier, he was a protector. Arriving at Linton's Crossing, they were greeted by a scene of chaos. The townsfolk were gathered, their faces pale and anxious. "They just vanished," a woman stammered, clutching her child tightly. "One moment they were here, the next, nothing." "Stay calm," Jackson assured her, trying to project confidence despite the gnawing dread in his gut. "We'll find them. Can you tell me where they were last seen?" "Just beyond the tree line," she replied, pointing toward the dense forest. "That's where they disappeared." With urgency fueling their movements, Jackson and his team approached the tree line. The fog swirled around them, thickening as they stepped into the shadows. The atmosphere felt charged, as if the forest held its breath in anticipation. "Keep your eyes peeled," Jackson instructed, glancing at his team. "We're not alone in here." As they ventured deeper, a metallic glint caught Jackson's eye, a small device half buried in the dirt. He knelt to inspect it, a chill creeping up his spine. The markings were unfamiliar, and a sense of foreboding washed over him. Just then, the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. A shadow flickered behind a nearby tree, and Jackson's heart pounded in his chest. "Did you see that?" he whispered, adrenaline surging. Before anyone could respond, a figure emerged from the fog, tall, imposing, and exuding an alien aura. Jackson's pulse raced as he recognized the menace they were about to face. "Prepare yourselves," he commanded, his voice steady despite the uncertainty looming ahead. The clash between humanity and the unknown had begun, and there was no turning back now. The safe house was a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Dimly lit and cluttered with old maps and makeshift equipment, it smelled of sweat and anticipation. Jackson Riker leaned over a table strewn with reports, the flickering overhead light casting shadows that danced across the walls. His team of seasoned veterans surrounded him, their faces drawn and weary. "All right, let's go over what we know," Jackson said, forcing calm into his voice. He straightened, his resolve hardening. "The locals are terrified, and for good reason. We're dealing with something we've never encountered before." "Something?" Sarah interjected, her skepticism clear. "It's an alien assassin, Jackson. This isn't just a few missing hikers. We're up against a force that wants to eliminate us." "Right," Jackson replied, meeting her gaze. "But we can't lose focus. We need to understand their motives before we make any rash moves. The last thing we want is to walk into a trap." Just then, Marcus, A burly ex-soldier known for his brute strength slammed a fist on the table, rattling the maps. How many more people have to go missing before we act? We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. There are lives at stake. Everyone, calm down! Jackson raised his hands, sensing the tension building in the cramped space. I get it. We all want to do something, but we need a solid plan. Panic won't help anyone. The room fell silent, the gravity of the situation hanging heavily in the air. Each member of the team had their own demons, their own motivations for being there. For Jackson, it was about redemption. He needed to prove to himself that he could protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Maybe we should reach out to the townsfolk, suggested Mia, a skilled medic who had always been the voice of reason. They might have seen or heard something that could give us an edge. Jackson nodded, considering her point. Good idea. We can gather more intel and reinforce our position. If we're going to fight back, we need to know what we're up against. As they discussed their strategy, Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, and the gnawing worry that they might already be too late settled in his gut. I'll handle the townspeople, Jackson said, determination igniting in his chest. Marcus, you and Sarah scout the perimeter. We can't afford to be surprised again. They divided the tasks, each person slipping into their roles with practiced ease. Jackson made his way to the town square, where the few remaining townsfolk lingered, eyes filled with anxiety. People of Linton's Crossing, he called, his voice steady yet warm. We need your help. If you've seen anything unusual, any strangers, odd noises, please come forward. A hesitant woman stepped forward, her hands trembling. I heard something last night like whispers. It was unnerving. The children were scared. They said they saw shadows moving in the trees. Shadows? Jackson felt a chill creep up his spine. Can you describe them? They were tall and thin, almost like people but not quite. They moved too quickly, too smoothly. As the woman spoke, Jackson's mind raced. Zarkin and his kind were not just hunting, they were stalking their prey with calculated precision. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the direction of the forest. Everyone turned, fear flashing across their faces. Jackson felt his heart skip a beat. Get to cover! He shouted, adrenaline surging. As the townsfolk scattered, Jackson's instincts kicked in. The enemy was closer than they thought, and the true battle was just beginning. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the town of Linton's Crossing as Jackson and his team prepared to confront the unknown. The sounds of distant chatter faded into the background, replaced by the oppressive silence of the encroaching forest. Jackson gathered his team, their faces etched with determination and anxiety. Tonight we go into the fog, Jackson announced, glancing around at the familiar faces of his comrades. We've gathered intel, and now it's time to see what's lurking out there. Remember, stick together and communicate. We can't let fear dictate our actions. Sarah, gripping her rifle tightly, nodded. We need to find out what those shadows were. If they're as dangerous as we think, we'll need a plan. I'll take point. Marcus volunteered, his burly frame radiating confidence. I can handle myself if things get dicey. No, Jackson said, shaking his head. We need to move stealthily. If we charge in like a bull, we'll be sitting ducks. We're not just hunting, we're gathering intel. Let's use the element of surprise to our advantage. With that, they ventured into the thickening fog, the forest swallowing them whole. The air felt charged, as if the trees themselves were alive, listening, waiting. Jackson led the way, his instincts heightened, every sound amplified in the stillness. As they walked deeper, Mia fell in step beside Jackson, her brow furrowed in thought. Do you really think we're prepared for this? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jackson hesitated, searching for the right words. I know we are. We've trained for moments like this. We just need to remember who we are, what we're fighting for. Right, she replied, glancing around as the fog thickened. But we're not just fighting an enemy, we're fighting fear itself. Her words resonated, and Jackson felt a flicker of hope. Fear was a powerful adversary, but unity could conquer even the most daunting shadows. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the trees, sending shivers down their spines. Jackson raised a hand, signaling for silence. The team halted, hearts pounding in sync with the distant noise. They exchanged anxious glances, adrenaline surging as they moved toward the source. "There," Marcus whispered, pointing toward a clearing. A faint light flickered, illuminating shapes moving within the shadows. "What the hell is that?" As they approached cautiously, Jackson's pulse quickened. The shadows took form, tall, gaunt figures with alien features, their movements fluid and unsettling. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, a chilling reminder that they were not alone. "Stay low," Jackson instructed, his voice steady despite the fear rising in his chest. "We need to get closer and gather intel." But just as they crept forward, one of the figures turned, its eyes glinting with an unnatural light. Jackson froze, his instincts screaming danger. "Retreat!" he hissed, but it was too late. The figure lunged forward, moving with blinding speed. A piercing shriek cut through the night air, reverberating like an alarm bell. Jackson and his team barely had time to react as they scattered, adrenaline igniting their fight-or-flight instincts. "Go! Go!" Jackson shouted, trying to rally his team amid the chaos. "We need to regroup!" As they fled through the fog, the shadows pursued them, relentless and cunning. Jackson could hear the heavy footsteps behind them, a reminder that they were being hunted. He pushed through the underbrush, determination fueling his every step. "Where do we go?" Sarah yelled, panic creeping into her voice. "Follow me," Jackson urged, his mind racing. They needed a plan, a safe place to regroup and assess their situation. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Their survival depended on his leadership. Suddenly, they burst into a small clearing, a brief respite from the terror pursuing them. Jackson turned to face his team, their faces painted with fear and determination. "We need to find a way to turn the tables," he said, breathing heavily. "We can't let them intimidate us." But just as he spoke, a figure emerged from the fog, its presence chilling the air. Jackson's heart dropped. This time, they were not merely being hunted, they were staring into the abyss. The clearing pulsed with tension as Jackson faced the ominous figure before him. It stood tall, cloaked in shadows, its alien features obscured by the swirling fog. Jackson's heart raced, but he steeled himself, drawing strength from the resolve of his team. This was no longer just a mission, it was a test of their courage and unity. "Stay together!" he shouted, positioning himself protectively in front of Sarah and Marcus. The alien loomed closer, its eyes glinting with predatory hunger. "We need to think strategically. This isn't just a fight, it's a game of wits. What do you suggest we do?" Sarah asked, her voice a mix of fear and determination. "We can't just stand here and wait to get picked off one by one. We use the environment," Jackson replied, scanning the clearing for potential advantages. "We have to outsmart it. Marcus, can you flank it? Draw its attention?" Marcus nodded, his jaw set in determination. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect us. Just give the signal." "Right," Jackson said, feeling the weight of leadership settle heavily on his shoulders. "Sarah and Mia, find cover behind those trees. We'll create a distraction and hit it hard when it least expects it." As they shifted into position, Jackson's mind raced. Memories of past failures surfaced, ghosts of the choices that had haunted him for years. He had led his team into battles before, but this felt different. This was personal. He could almost hear the whispers of doubt creeping in, urging him to abandon hope. "No more hesitation," he muttered to himself, clenching his fists. "We can't let fear win." With a deep breath, Jackson gestured to Marcus, who took off, his heavy footsteps breaking the eerie silence. The alien turned its gaze toward him, a low growl escaping its lips. Jackson could see its muscles tense, ready to pounce. "Now!" Jackson yelled, and the world erupted into chaos. Sarah and Mia opened fire from their concealed positions, bullets cutting through the fog. Jackson joined in, focusing on keeping the alien off balance. Marcus charged forward, his massive frame a blur of motion. "Come on, you overgrown lizard!" he shouted, taunting the creature to draw its attention away from the others. Jackson admired Marcus's bravery but felt the weight of worry for his friend. In the midst of the fray, Jackson found himself grappling with his own fears. The alien retaliated, moving with an unnatural speed that left him breathless. It lunged at Marcus, who narrowly dodged the attack, the creature's claws slicing through the air where he had just stood. "Keep it busy!" Jackson shouted, urging his team to stay focused. They needed to work together, harnessing their strengths. As the alien shifted its attention, Jackson seized the moment. "We need to flank it from both sides. Mia, cover us!" Mia nodded, her eyes fierce with determination. "I've got your back." They coordinated their movements, weaving through the trees, hearts pounding in unison. Jackson felt the adrenaline coursing through him, the fear transforming into clarity. They were a team, and together, they had the power to overcome. As they approached the alien from opposite directions, Jackson caught Marcus's eye. "Now!" he shouted. In a perfectly timed maneuver, they converged on the creature, launching their attack. The clash was fierce. Jackson felt the weight of the alien's strength as it fought back, but they had the advantage of numbers. They were no longer just soldiers. They were a united front, fueled by the desire to protect their home. "Push forward!" Jackson commanded, rallying their spirits. "We can't let it take any more lives!" In that moment, something shifted within Jackson. He felt the ghosts of doubt dissolve, replaced by a fierce determination to lead his team to victory. They were not merely fighting for survival, they were fighting for each other. As the battle raged on, Jackson glimpsed a flicker of hope. The creature was starting to falter, its movements becoming erratic. "Together!" he shouted, rallying his team for one final push. But just as they closed in for the decisive blow, a tremor shook the ground beneath them. Jackson's heart sank as he realized they weren't just fighting an alien, they were in a much larger game, and the stakes were rising higher than ever. The tremor rippled through the clearing, unsettling the ground beneath their feet. Jackson steadied himself, glancing at his team, their expressions a mixture of determination and fear. The alien creature reeled from the assault, but something ominous loomed just beyond them. They had pushed it to the brink, yet the ground shook with a warning that danger was far from over. "Everyone, hold your ground!" Jackson shouted, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "We need to stay focused. This isn't just about defeating it, it's about survival for all of us." As if on cue, the creature let out a guttural roar, its body twisting in pain and fury. In that moment, Jackson sensed an opportunity. "Now! We can't let it regain its footing!" Marcus lunged forward, determination etched on his face. "Together, we end this!" He charged at the alien, forcing it to stagger back under the weight of his attack. Jackson and Sarah flanked him, their weapons poised and ready. The creature retaliated, claws slicing through the air as it swiped at Marcus. "Watch it!" Jackson yelled, firing a shot that struck the alien's shoulder. It howled in pain, but it wasn't enough to stop it. The enemy's eyes glimmered with a sinister intelligence, realizing that they were a united front. "Regroup!" Jackson commanded. "We need to create a distraction." With a nod, Mia took a deep breath and pulled a smoke grenade from her belt. "Cover me!" she yelled as she activated the device. A thick cloud of smoke billowed around them, enveloping the clearing in a shroud of gray. "Get ready!" Jackson shouted as he dashed through the smoke, relying on his instincts and the bond they had forged. He could hear Marcus and Sarah's voices amidst the chaos, keeping the creature occupied. The fog hung thick around them, obscuring their movements and lending them an advantage. As Jackson neared the creature, he could feel the tension in the air, the palpable fear of the unknown coiling tightly around them. Yet he knew that fear could be a powerful motivator. "We are stronger together!" he called out to his team, letting their resolve fuel his own. Emerging from the smoke, Jackson took aim once more, his heart racing. "On 3! 1, 2, 3!" The trio attacked simultaneously, their combined strength overwhelming the alien. Jackson felt the rush of adrenaline surging through his veins, the echoes of their shared purpose guiding his every move. The creature staggered back, confusion etched across its alien features. It had underestimated them, mistaking their humanity for weakness. But they had shown their true colors, proving that when united, they were an indomitable force. "Now!" Jackson yelled, making his way to the creature's vulnerable side. "Let's finish this!" With a coordinated effort, they pressed forward, driving the alien into a corner. Jackson could see fear flicker in its eyes, an alien emotion that mirrored their own. In that moment, he realized that this was more than just a battle for survival. It was a struggle against the very notion of isolation and despair. As they closed in for the final blow, the ground trembled violently once more. The creature roared in defiance, but Jackson and his team pressed on, fueled by a determination to protect their home. "Together!" Jackson shouted, channeling the spirit of unity that had carried them this far. With a final, coordinated strike, they unleashed their fury, bringing the alien to its knees. As silence fell over the clearing, they stood panting, catching their breath. The fog began to clear, revealing the dawning light of day filtering through the trees. Jackson's heart swelled with pride. They had done it. They had faced their fears and emerged victorious. But as they took a moment to regroup, a sudden beeping noise broke the stillness. Jackson turned, eyes wide. A small device lay at the feet of the fallen alien, blinking ominously. "What is that?" Sarah whispered, dread creeping into her voice. Jackson stepped closer, the implications weighing heavily on his mind. "Whatever it is, it might not be over yet. We need to find out what's next." As they gathered around the device, a chilling realization set in. Their battle had been won, but the war was far from over. They had awakened something much larger than themselves, and the horizon loomed with uncertainty. But together, they were ready to face whatever came next.